Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of our brand new Market Smart video podcast. My name is Adam Hancock once again, and I'm not sure how long you've been tuning in, but this channel right here, the Florida Relocation Guide, has been kind of a labor of love for me over the last 4 years. And the real focus has been to make you the smartest possible consumer when it comes to buying, selling, and/or investing in the entire state of Florida. So it was to equip you with information that you could use independently or with someone else. And throughout that, it really became a relocation specialty of sorts. So we talk about best place to live, geography is incredibly important, how to take a lot of neighborhoods and narrow them down quickly, metros versus each other, Tampa, Naples, Sarasota. So all we're trying to do is peel back the layers there and try to respect your time and be as efficient as possible. That's kind of what we've been building here. Well, in and out of that conversation, I've talked, here and there about economics and forecasts, and that needs to be in play if we want to be the smartest consumer, in my opinion. Well, what I want to do here is I haven't really given that the focus that I think it needs right now. There's a lot of complicated issues. There's a lot of scary issues and fragility and vagueness and ambiguity that exist in the housing market in general, not Florida specific necessarily. I want to add that as incremental value on this channel. So I'm not stopping anything I'm doing. Sunday nights, I'm going to post. My goal forever is to post every single Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. But I'm going to add a Wednesday element of most, if not every Wednesday, of this brand new podcast. We're going to talk about two main things: simplification and application. I want to take complicated, vague issues in the current real estate market in real time, and I want to use my background. I'm going to dust that off of modeling and analytics and data to peel back the layers and simplify that kind of thing. So part two of those videos, we can apply them. In my opinion, I take a very bullish standpoint of, there's a lot of videos and there's a lot of the media world that talks about doom and gloom, negative, 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 but there's no solution, right? So I'm more of an is what it is kind of guy. So if interest rates are at, 30% or, the days on market or the average inventory is at like a month average on market or something like that, what if you still want to do something? How do you do it? So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to simplify and we're going to tell you if you want to apply it, what you could possibly do about it. In episode 1, we're going to talk supply and demand. So where we currently stand from a buyer versus seller leverage here in January 2024. I'm going to talk about how we got there, part 1, and part 2 of this video, I'm going to talk about possible things that you could do to leverage those seemingly negatives in the minds of the people. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. I appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, the intro will be way shorter on future episodes, and let's get started. Okay, part 1, let's discuss how we got to where we're at now. It's not new news that we've been in a seller favorable, advantageous market for a while now in most major cities in the United States. However, timing is the big key here. Timing matters a lot more right now than it's mattered in a long period of time. We have come out of a crazy, wild period in history. Let's say just mid-2020 to end of 2022. But what I saw was this pattern. Q4 2022 to Q1 2023 felt very similar for one particular reason as Q4 2023 did to Q1 2024. And that was in people waiting. People were waiting because there was no incentive to do something early, because the honey pot, if you waited, you either end up in the same place you're already at now as like a buyer, a relocator, whatever it may be, or you better that situation. One of the biggest shifts I've seen in a long period of time is buyer confidence. Because what everybody was waiting for was to have the confidence to have no regrets. That was the essence. Nothing's perfect. There is vagueness in every decision we're making, and a lot of people chirping in your ear. But what people did not want to do and what they were terrified to do was to go too early, too different, make a decision that they would miss out big, like some huge price discount, some huge interest rate adjustment. And what I feel like we have enough data now of a lot of people that did not agree previously agree pretty consensusly is like interest rates aren't going to 3%, but they're not going to 9%. And a couple of these shifts allowed people to say like, okay, it is what it is. And that's what we needed was, it is what it is. It doesn't mean you should make a decision. It does not mean you should buy. Does not mean you should sell. But it gives you enough confidence, or buyers enough confidence potentially to say like, this is all the information I know right now. And if I want to make a decision, then I can't look over my shoulder forever. So at least I feel like they're saying interest rates are not going to go up. They might go down, but it's going to be slight. So I know what I'm working with and I can make a decision and not look back. So beyond buyer confidence and interest rates, let's talk net migration. We live in this world pretty heavily because of the real estate brokerages that I own are in these like really centric retirement, play first, work second kind of markets. So we see a ton of this kind of stuff. However, it affects a lot of markets. So we've seen a couple things. One, net migration into states, especially like Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas. They got 3, 5, 6, 10 years, you could even say, worth of increase in migration versus what would have happened in any other period of time. Because they got people that were gonna retire, maybe 5, 6, 7 years away. The work from home or whatever it may be made them jump early, and then they're gonna work out the rest from home, or they liquidated, retired early. They got people that thought they would never get out. People commuting to downtown urban districts, downtown Chicago, LA. There's a lot of markets in the United States that people only live surrounding it because of the commute. But if you took the commute off the table, especially if they still made the money from that state in proportion, and you said they could live anywhere, then there's not even a chance that they look back. There's a lot of places that you wouldn't even have considered unless someone gave you a reason to. It's kind of like when you like your job, okay, you're doing good. And then someone's just poking you all day, like maybe your boss, or you're getting a little disgruntled, and then you go on Indeed or LinkedIn and you look at a couple job things, just flirting around with it on a Friday morning, and you're like, holy, like they pay more for my role, there's abundance of jobs, and once you know that information in your head, it's really hard for you to work day in and day out liking that same job because you know the alternative. Now there's a grass is greener and all that kind of stuff you got to weigh, and we're not going to get into all that. But I feel like that happened a lot of ways. Not only did people go early, but they also got that in their mind and they couldn't get it out. So there was people that were like, I don't care if they call us back, I'm not going back. You had a political element on that. Like, I'm not going to talk about politics on here, but you had a political element of that people, this idea of feeling like you're closed in and you know, you disagree with the politics and all this kind of stuff. And there's a tax element and all these kind of things. So net migration alone, just the simple surplus of people that want to arrive at not 10 different states. These people are all going to the same places. And that's going to ripple for a while. That's the big takeaway here is like, I don't know if we could take a single year and you correlate these things of supply and demand. It's all the stuff that happened earlier than it should have. Like, that's not leaving people's minds. All the people that pushed into the state and had to rent, picked the wrong house and have to move again. They went earlier than they were educated to and they had to guess. So they need to maneuver and fix these things or whatever. They weren't able to be patient. All of that's going to like shake out here. But we still have a lot more people trying to get into the 5, 6 states that everyone wants to than we do to have homes or ways to satiate those needs. And the other interesting thing that's emerged out of that is the people that are already here, let's say Sarasota, Naples, Miami, Atlanta, Georgia, you know, the people that were already there want to move out now, you know, because of all the influx. So a lot of people decided to find an exodus at more quaint places of like a lot of Floridians went to North Carolina. They wanted to leave to find an exile when it comes to not having what the state turned into that they didn't want originally. So you just had a bunch of movement, you know, like one of the highest net migrations to Tampa, Florida is from Miami, which is 3 hours away. One of the highest net migrations in and out of Florida and Georgia is Atlanta to Tampa or Atlanta to Sarasota. So you got this ebb and flow of just general movement, and movement creates a lot of different things, good or bad in the market. But buyer confidence, interest rates, and net migration are huge, huge factors in this, not only being seller heavy now, but also sustaining probably for a long period of time. And beyond that, if you'll humor me for just another minute to talk about a couple other correlators, one of the biggest things is seller reluctance. It's the idea of the lock-in theory. And I don't know how much you've explored this one, but it's the idea of sellers buying in a very favorable market. What if you bought in 2017 or 18? You have a ton of equity. What if you bought in mid-2020? You got a good deal, ton of equity, and you don't know what to do with it because how do you sell and buy in the same market? Can you actualize that equity? Should you just do a home equity line of credit and figure it out? Do you have to move to a area that you could do this again and take advantage of? Like, how's that all shake out? And that provides a lot more ambiguity than a lot of things in the market. So these people are just pausing, right? That's, even if they're exploring that idea, it's complicated. So those homes aren't going on the market because they don't know what else they would do. They're excited about the gold rush of the equity, but maybe can't realize it in any sort of reasonable manner. And you got a lot of people giving you opinions about what you should do. And then you have economic factors that are very micro local specific to metros. What if a commercial, like what if a company brings in a bunch of jobs on like a new development commercially, right? They bring in the headquarters. You see this in Tampa all the time. They bring in a different headquarters or Florida headquarters to their operation, or Miami, and they're trying to save money and provide jobs and all that kind of thing. But what if the job need outweighs the pace of which people they can house these people in these developments? What if they move into a district that doesn't have suburban housing, and then people are commuting in? It changes the traffic patterns, changes all kind of stuff, right? So you got a lot of reasons that I think, as a takeaway, that I don't know if this is going to get, depending on what market you live in, this is going to be some sort of automatic fix of any sort. So what we need to tilt towards is how to navigate it, is the ebb and flow of possible issues in people's minds, in the minds of the people. Can you leverage? Can you take advantage of it? And that's what I want to talk about next. Okay, the first one I want to talk about when it comes to application, and this is no particular order, is when it comes to new home residential construction builders. That was a mouthful. Said that weird. But the thing is, people put so much weight on months of depleting inventory as a correlator for buyers versus sellers market. How many months would it take to deplete all the inventory that you had in your city if not another home was listed, right? Which is a valid statistic, right? But it does not include, in a meaningful way, inventory that's imaginary, the plans to build homes. And the thing is that there's not going to be enough homes anytime in the near future in the meaningful markets of the United States for sellers to list their homes, move somewhere else, and that be what satiates the need of all the net migration and all the weirdness of the market that's causing an influx in certain cities. So who has to satiate that need and solve that problem, which is not going to be solved anytime soon? They're already playing catch up, is new home builders. It's a B to C conversation. So with that being said, I did a video a while back about Warren Buffett's investments, and just the following his investments. And, he's obviously does well. So not a dummy. He plays a long-term game, but he made huge investments in Lennar, D.R. Horton, and Ryan Homes' parent company, which both give you affordability and gives you spec building at scale. Because the idea is that we are way behind and we're not catching up soon. So home building is what is trying to attack the housing shortage. Now, from a buyer standpoint, that becomes a leverage play in a lot of scenarios, right? If you try to navigate that, these are businesses, they have margin, it's a completely different setup. Now they have margin, they have expenses, but they're competing against each other. And they are very densely populated in a lot of areas. You have 1,200 communities in Florida plus that are building new home communities actively. 300 plus are in Orlando, and they're not evenly spread throughout the state, right? So if you get to a density like a Dallas, Texas, a Houston, northern Tampa, Sarasota has a ton, Orlando, or something like that as example's sake, California has a ton, etc., then they compete. And they have room to do things, because if you build a 1,500 home community, your margin isn't house to house, it's the community wide. So you're trying to balance all of that. So they can take hits in certain areas and win in other areas, and they ebb and flow with timing, years to build, the market, and the individual house. And as a buyer, there are things that can be leveraged there, incentive-wise and timing-wise and logistics and all of that kind of stuff that can't be done if you're dealing with one person, where the equity in their home as a seller means a lot more to them than the equity of a builder that's in the top 5 and of America's sized builders. So that'd be one area to look at. Okay, a second thing I would look at is taking advantage of something that I would deem the ripple. And that is the idea of areas that benefit from being close to the most in vogue areas of a town. So for a couple examples' sake, I'll try to talk about a couple states depending on where you're from. But if, Sarasota, Florida, that's where our headquarters is at, right? Well, not everybody can move to the same area. Sarasota, Naples would be a good example. So what happens if everybody tries to push into a certain area and the criteria doesn't necessarily work, but just simply the bandwidth doesn't work? The populace can't support it. Well, that's how you could build a Lakewood Ranch. The closest you can get to the beach is 30 minutes probably. But you can build 40 plus communities out there because it's close-ish to the stuff that people deemed important, but it solves need they couldn't. That's why Venice is so invoked. Venice, Florida, it's right below Sarasota because it has a lot of similarities, but it was southern, it was more quaint, it was smaller, it was a little cheaper because it was on the fringe. Dallas, Texas, great example. A lot of the suburbs in Dallas are north of downtown. So you have Plano gets popular because it's kind of close, but it offers like good schools, suburban housing, etc. Well, Frisco's right above that, Jerry Jones land. Newer construction, right above Plano, a little further from town, but not that much. What's above that? Prosper, Salina, McKinney, same conversation, right? Tampa Bay, Wesley Chapel, go 25 miles north of downtown, you get full-on master plan, half the price. You know, you go on and on and on, right? So if you know the evolution of how things could exist, where do they build new homes? Where can they build master plan? Understanding over time that people's okay level of being far from town it trickles. So at the beginning, people were like, no way in hell would I move to Florida if I'm 10 miles one way from the stuff I want to be. It takes me 20, 25 minutes, but over time, it bleeds and bleeds and bleeds and bleeds, where they get more okay with it as they get conditioned to it. And as a buyer, potentially you could take advantage of maybe taking a very risk mitigated guess at the advantage of the next one. You know, what is Parrish, Florida to Lakewood Ranch? What is Western Northport to Venice? What is North Venice and Nokomis to South Sarasota? You know, like what is the next? So that would be something I would look at. That plays in the same new construction conversation as well. Whether you're an investor speculatively or you're looking for yourself, I do think if you lean into what the minds of the people deem a negative, i.e. too far from the coast or whatever it may be, and it's not a negative to you necessarily, you could benefit pretty significantly financially. Okay, and lastly, as I conclude here on this piece of the video, I want to talk about just general flexibility. I by no means am someone that's going to get on camera here and say, waive your contingencies, write the seller a letter. That's not what I deem as leverage. You know, and leverage is very important because recognizing when you have a potential advantage, or at least it's a win-win, some of the biggest moves can be made. I'm someone that really likes trading terms for not trading money. So if you can recognize when you're competing in a buy-sell situation, when terms matter a lot, i.e. The logistics of someone being able to rent back for a period of time, them being able to have a longer close. You know, you get with a certain person, especially like over like the $2 million mark, then a lot of times it's business folks that tax matters a lot and timing matters a lot on the close because they're looking at a liquidation event and they're looking at all these kind of things. So timing really matters. And they could save more money by going in arrangement with you versus the opportunity cost of someone else paying them a little bit more upfront with worse terms. And if logistics don't matter to you, it'd be something to lean into. Another thing is if you're in a situation where the rent to own is a thing for you, then you can lock in an options contract of sorts where it's kind of like a reverse refinance of sorts, where, you know, that makes a lot of sense at the time. So when you have leverage, locking in an options contract, even if you're paying a little bit more in rent to do so, to lock in a price for a home that is at your discretion with first right of refusal at the timing that would matter. So if things changed negative necessarily for the seller part of it, then you could win as a buyer because at the time that you did it, it made sense. The same with an assumption of a mortgage. You could potentially, I have seen scenarios now, it's not across the board, I don't even know if it's over 50% of the time, that that lock-in theory idea, that someone's selling their house, that you could assume their mortgage at their lower rate. So just a few things to consider overall, but I would look at this upcoming year as, I would take it seriously. Again, I don't think we're in a market, and we're not going to be in a market for a while. I don't think you should rush into anything. I don't think you should do something before you're ready. The best part of where we're at now is that you can maybe make a decision of what you actually want. It'd be nice if you could forget what happened, because that 2020, that's hard for people to be like, I missed out there and that's never coming back, right? But that wasn't a reality for most people. Even with the 3% interest rates, most people didn't have that in play. So that wasn't reality anyway. But now we're in a time where you could buy and refi, you can buy, stabilize, and you could buy now, and maybe 5 years from now, it's a very similar rate. And you can, now that builders know that, then the pay down of the rates in advance to get you to sign a contract early is way more in play because they're not going to lose their hat on changes and all that kind of thing. So, all right, my friends, that is a wrap on episode number 1 of the Market Smart Video Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're not subscribed to the podcast and or the channel, please consider doing so you can see what's coming next. If my brokerage, the Sunshine State Company, can help you in any way, Florida-wide, not just Sarasota, not just Southwest Florida, We have a unique organization and structure. We'd love to see if we meshed at all, buying, selling, and/or investing. We have several relocation guides, digital guides we've been updating. So we have a brand new 2024 Sarasota version. We have a 2024 Tampa Bay guide. And these basically give not only my favorite neighborhoods, but they break down like restaurants and things to do and more insider stuff that we can't do here. We're updating a Naples one now, so that should be out soon as well. And we have a couple monthly newsletters as well. So reach out if you want to be involved in any of that kind of stuff, reference the videos. I have a newsletter that's put out that covers mainly Southwest Florida out of the Sunshine State Company desk. And then also I'm working on a manifesto, more housing market related one that will be once a month. That'll be a stream of consciousness for me. It's called the Adam Report. So you can go to adamreport.com and get on that list. The first one probably comes out in February. We don't spam me at all. So the goal is basically not to hit you up at all based, other than those 2 emails. Really, we have no campaigns, we have no drips on you or any of that kind of thing. So that's not the goal here. We just want to see if this doesn't satiate all your needs, can other forms of content add to it, basically. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. I appreciate you as always, and we'll see you on the next one.